minutes here, though, when you're interested in what we're doing as a board. We'll get started here. The first area is fiscal. We have items 1 and 2. The first, outline community college system institutions in 2016-2017 budget.
Good afternoon. The first action item is the budget for the institutions, Alabama Community College System institutions. That includes the 25 community colleges, ATM, and MMI. It's recommended that the board approve the 2016-17 budgets as presented within this document. The total projected revenues for the 16-17 year is over $925 million. Each institution presented a budget to our office, and we collected those budgets, compiled them into a single budget, so the information that you see today is a compiled budget for all institutions. We did break out MMI and ATN. They have separate line items in the Act, so those are broken out individually. First page, you see the projected revenues for the 25 community colleges. Second page, you'll see the MMI and ATN projected revenues and the comparative figures from the year before. The ETF, the Education Trust Fund, represents 34.36% of their budget of the projected revenues. 30.58% is projected to, are the projected revenues from tuition and fees, and 27.74% from federal sources. You'll also see the expenditures, the projected expenditures for 2016-17 with the comparative figures from the year before. And again, ATN and Marion are broken out separately because of their line item. All of these expenditures include the increases in for the COLA, retirement, and the health insurance. 16 of our institutions are projecting a 3-month or more contingency. 10 are projecting at least the 2-month contingency that's required. We only have one institution that falls below the required 2-month contingency, and that's Drake, and theirs is 0.82. So less than a month. Drake will be required to submit a corrective action plan because since they fall below that 2-month requirement. The colleges collectively have a 3.82 contingency. Are there any questions?
Of course, we received this information earlier and had time to review it very carefully. Thank you for that. So we will go right ahead.
Okay. The next action item is a recommendation to the board to accept or to approve the 2016-17 budget for the system office, the Alabama Community College System Office. Unlike the colleges, we must budget all of our projected revenues. We are not allowed to hold a reserve. If we expect to expend the funds, then we must obligate those. The same, we collect these from the divisions, or we work with our different divisions within the system office and get their projections, allow them input into their individual budgets, and then we compile those into one budget to present to the Executive Budget Office of the state, which ultimately gets to the Comptroller's office, and that dictates our spending for the year. Our projected revenues for next year are over $67 million. We have several federal grants, Adult Ed being one, SAA, State-Driven Agency, Department of Human Resources. We have a couple of grants through the Department of Human Resources. And we also collect fees. PSL, private school licensure, we collect some fees. So all of those revenues are represented in these projected revenues. The ETF was level funded this year except for industry certification initiatives. They actually received an increase of $200,000. And we did have two new items in our appropriation this year. One was the Career Technology Instructor Supplements and the Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math STEAM Pilot Project. And those were funded at $2,250,000 consecutively. The last page of the document actually indicates the sources of revenues, the budgeted for the current year and the projected for next year. And I know the question had been asked at one point about the other funds and fees, and there was a reduction, and we had a grant that completed last year, but we didn't know it at the time. We had to make these projections last November. So it was not anticipated at the time, so that's the reduction there. On that same page, you'll see the projected expenditures, and as I mentioned, these projected expenditures must match our expenditures. And all of our expenditures also include the increases in retirement and health insurance. Our department employees are not eligible for the COLA, so they do not reflect a COLA for our employees.
Almost about a 10% drop in personnel costs. What is that related to?
If you look, the budgeted number for the current year is strictly that, just a budgeted number. There were positions that we did not hire.
Okay.
So, and that was reflected in the current year's budget. And like I said before, all of this was, we had to do all of these calculations last year. But still, at that point in time when this was done, they were still just projections. So that could very well increase during the year. And y'all would see that via our budget to actual report.
I notice there's also a significant drop in professional services.
Off the top of my head, I cannot think of what that might be. I would have to look back at records.
I would suspect some of that is probably things we can't anticipate, some legal services that we have that are not anticipated.
Well, I'll be honest, again, sometimes we have to project these so far out. I'm about to do the final operations plan for the year. These numbers were based on the numbers at the time that we did this. So once I do this new operations plan, these figures will fluctuate because I'll have to go in and actually reduce the personnel cost to reflect as close to actual as I can, because otherwise we'll lose the money because we cannot encumber those particular units. So all of these will most likely change when I do that final operations plan. So it may look a lot different, and that's due the end of next week. And I'll be happy to provide a budget after that time, if y'all would like to see that.
Anything else from the trustees? Thank you, Ms. Leatherwood.
You're welcome.
The next item on the agenda under legal, item 3 is proposed sale of property at Jefferson State.
Good afternoon to you all. The city of Hoover has made an offer to Jefferson State to purchase 1.6 acres of land in connection with the widening Valleydale Road. The city's offer was based on an appraisal that was commissioned by the city. The college has commissioned its own appraisal from an independent appraiser and obtained an appraisal on the property slightly less than the offer that is being made by the city. In addition to the 1.6 acres for the right-of-way, that price includes some limited improvements on the property and a temporary construction easement of about 0.2 acres. If an agreement cannot be reached with the city of Hoover with respect to this right-of-way proposal, the property would be subject to eminent domain. Are there any questions?
I would just say, I do a lot of these in the conduct of my business, and this seems to be a very fair appraisal that's been offered by the city. And I would say, from the board's perspective, if we did not come to agreement and this went to an eminent domain, some of the consideration we're getting for compensation would not be afforded by the courts. So really, this is the best deal we're gonna get. And it's a nice one too.
I think we talked about the increased access and the college
Yes,
being excited
that
about
is the real benefit to the college.
Yes.
Is the increased access for both students and employees.
I did know that in the rationale, that just to point out some obvious, the first line, Jefferson State is agent for the State Board of Education, because technically they still own the property.
They are the title owner, and we will have to address that, and we will.
Yeah, and that's, you know, if legislation goes through for us, ultimately, those properties that didn't get transferred to this board from the State Board of Education, when the legislation that created our board, that's just one of the things we need to work on.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. O'Brien? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
The final item on the work session agenda, under executive, the realignment of Alabama Southern Community College, Fox State Community College, and Jefferson Davis Community College. This is the final phase, request for approval of the administrative and programmatic consolidation of Alabama of the three institutions. Ms. Price.
Good afternoon. Yesterday, you received a lot of information, and so what I'm going to do is go through it in a little more detail than I normally would, because you may not have had an opportunity to thoroughly review it. So before you today is a request for approval of the administrative and programmatic consolidation of Alabama Southern Community College, Faulkner State Community College, and Jefferson Davis Community College. And let me repeat that. There are three institutions that are being consolidated in the Southwest. I continue to read that there are four. And I understand a little bit of the reason for the confusion. Initially, Reed State Technical College was under consideration. But as of February, they were no longer being considered for consolidation because they are not a member of ACCS. So there are three. In support of this recommendation, you have the following in your packets. You have the action item with the rationale. You have a revised request for administrative consolidation that's dated August 10, 2016. This is an updated version of the document that we gave to you back in February. You also have a worksheet that supplements the request. And what we'd like you to do is just add that to your administrative consolidation notebooks that you received in February. Now, in addition to those documents, we have made available to you on Dropbox the attachments that are referenced in the worksheet. We did not print them for distribution today because they total about 200 pages. So if you would prefer to have a hard copy, we'd be very happy to send it to you, but they are available to you to read on Dropbox. Recently, I informed you that we would be discussing administrative consolidation and programmatic consolidation in the fall, expecting for you to approve it in December. However, we brought this request to you today for approval in September because on Monday we learned that during conversations with SACCOC liaisons last week, the colleges were informed that as a part of the prospectus packet, they must provide evidence showing that administrative and programmatic consolidation have been approved by AIC and this board. I think you all also have a letter from Dr. Branch which talks a little bit more in detail in your packet. Now, the prospectus is due on September 1 and it's going to be submitted on September 1. But ACCS has given us permission to submit evidence of your approval on September 15th, and that's the day following your meeting. Now, before I describe today's request, let me just simply refresh. On December 10, 2015, you approved the Chancellor's resolution to initiate planning for the consolidation of Faulkner State, Alabama Southern, Jeff Davis, and Reed State Technical College. On March 8, 2016, you approved the statement of intent to consolidate the 3 institutions, so Reed was taken out of the mix. A few days after you approved the statement of intent, AIC also approved the statement of intent. That was March 11, 2016. Now, on January 15th, the 3 institutions jointly submitted to AIC a request for administrative consolidation. The same request was submitted to you on February 10, 2016. Initially, we hoped for approval of administrative consolidation at AIC's quarterly meeting in March, followed by your approval. However, the decision on administrative consolidation was delayed pending further discussions with AIC. Those discussions have been taking place over the last several weeks. Now, the normal progression is first to get approval of administrative consolidation, followed by approval of programmatic consolidation. But AIC has agreed to combine both administrative and programmatic into a single request and approval. And this is very good news for us because that means that it will allow the college to go ahead and submit the prospectus to SACCOC on September 1st. So, regarding the request, administrative consolidation and programmatic consolidation phases are described in AIC's guidelines, and they are printed in the Alabama Administrative Code. They were actually created by AIC and the State Board of Education, and basically they are 2 steps that work together to form a consolidation. In the administrative consolidation stage, 2 or more institutions are placed under a single executive head. So even though they report to the same executive leader, they function as as separately or separate institutions. So you may have 3 that are administratively consolidated under one head, but they remain 3 separate institutions. With programmatic consolidation in that phase, then you have the institutions coming together to combine to form the single institution. So you have one step and then the other. In this case, they're going to be combined, which is great. So AIC's guidelines require 19 distinct elements be addressed during the administrative and programmatic consolidation phase. And I'm just going to give you a sense of some of them. There must be a statement of assurances regarding the treatment of personnel and the treatment of students. There must be a statement regarding the disposition and consolidation of assets, physical property, resources, equipment, etc., upon that consolidation of the 3 institutions. There needs to be the identification of the main campus, the campuses, the instructional sites. There needs to be a consolidation timeline. There need to be copies of the minutes, and I think you referenced this earlier, the minutes from the steering committee and all committees that worked on consolidation so that you have a good sense of what went on and the recommendations that came out of those committees. The proposed mission statement, the explanation of the process for developing employee handbooks, and the explanation of the process for putting together student handbooks, an explanation of the effects of the consolidation on federal funding and loans concerning students, and a schedule of all the meetings, forums, and discussions that took place or are taking place with employees, with students, with community members, with stakeholder groups regarding the proposed consolidation. And finally, it does need to include a draft of the substantive change prospectus that will be sent to SACCOC. So as you can see, that's a lot of information that must be in, both of those requests, and that's what makes up the 200 plus pages that we have. So as you read through this documentation, you're going to notice that several of these elements were already covered in the statement of intent that you approved back in March. But what you see now is the next level down, or even the next level down of detail. If you vote to approve this request, your approval is going to be subject to the acceptance and approval of that prospectus by SACCOC. It will be submitted in September. It will be decided upon in December. So in effect, you're approving in September, but it won't go into effect until after SACCOC accepts and approves. And the one caveat there is, once SACCOC tells us they accept and approve the prospectus, you as a board have 30 days in which to approve the consolidation and implement. So that's got to be sometime probably mid-December to mid-January. Finally, I know that Dr. Branch is here, Dr. Blow is here, and Mr. Chandler is here representing the three institutions. So we're all available if you have questions.
4 members? Ms. Price?
Yes, sir.
The presentation, PowerPoint presentation you gave to the Board of Trustees in February
Yes, sir.
meeting, I think, we had discussed putting that online. Were we able to, has that been done?
No, it hasn't. Shortly after the presentation, as you might recall, the schedule got a little wobbly. So no, we don't have that up. We certainly can now that we have a schedule and we know how we're going to proceed. The one thing I would say is that schedule is really unique to these circumstances. And we would hope that in the future the schedule will look slightly different, but certainly we can put up the current schedule that we're certainly comfortable with at this point.
I would request that.
Okay.
I know that those legislators, those other interested individuals from outside the system that were in attendance at that meeting, that was an eye-opener to them, and it gave them a better understanding of what was involved in the realignment process. So I think that would be good. And if possible, maybe some of the high points of some of the meetings that were held, I don't know if those minutes and things could be put where it's accessible to the public and people that either have concerns in the community. It's just a thought, we can discuss that further, but especially that PowerPoint in a modified form.
Absolutely.
That suits where we are now.
Yes.
And the timeline now.
Will do.
That'd be good to be accessible online. Any other questions, trustees? We'll look forward to digesting all or most of this material. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I noticed Representative Terry Collins entered. Representative Collins, thank you for your presence. Would you like to say a few words?
No, I'm just thrilled to have you in North Alabama. We appreciate you taking time and moving around the state and letting people get to see areas that they may not be familiar with. And it's good to be a part of your meeting today.
Thank you for being here. It's our privilege to have you here. Anything else from the?
The only thing I want to do is thank y'all. This Wednesday, Dr. Anthony will be presiding over a groundbreaking ceremony in the Memphis to open the start construction of the truck driver. It was funded through this board and through the Delta Regional Authority. And AT&T showed up on site yesterday after your request of February 15th. So they're moving rapidly to reach out to us. So, and I did say February 15th. Thank you, Dr. Anthony, and all the work that went on with this, because it is desperately needed in the area. Thank you.
Just wanted to make a request of the board in our next work session. I think our Audit and Finance Committee are going to have 2 or 3 items that they want to present for consideration, and some things that we've all had interest in and been working on for a while. We've been working on financial reporting, and we're gonna make a recommendation at the next month's meeting as to what types of reports we should get, and, we've kind of whittled down to what we need, and so we wanna kind of make a presentation for the board to see, and a couple of other things that we're working on. We'll give you an update on the charge today for the state, and then we also wanna, we have been discussing a lot in our committee meetings, software platforms. We've gathered a lot of information with the help of a lot of the presidents, so we wanna just kind of bring you up to date on that too, what we've learned.
Very good, we look forward to that. Anything else from any of the trustees? Once again, I wanna thank Dr. Clobber, all his staff at Calhoun for their hospitality, for the great facilities and the way they've been tremendous hosts to us. My thanks to Blake and Patty McAnally and to Crystal Brown for their hospitality and just been so very gracious. And thanks for the attendance of the trustees and for your diligent work and your attention to this. I also want to thank our central office staff. Adrian, thank you. I know it's not easy when you have to transport all this, and Dr. Baker, thank you for helping facilitate all this, and all the other staff that participated in this. I know it takes effort, and but I think it's well worth it for us to get out and about and see firsthand the great things that are going on here at all our different institutions. The tour today was just outstanding, and the meal was delicious, and we just had great reception. Thank you to everyone. If there's nothing further from the trustees, we'll stand adjourned. Safe travels, everyone.